I've
Martial arts studies as academic field has a complicated but necessary relationship with practice. And there's all different types of scholars involved in the kind of intellectual and academic and professional and sometimes amateur study of martial arts history, martial arts anthropology, martial arts innovation. One of the people who has a really interesting relationship to professional martial arts scholarship and also practice is my former teacher, Professor. I'm going to call him Professor because he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I could call him Sifu if I wanted because he's a Tai Chi, Xing-Yi and Choi Li Foot Kung Fu instructor too, very high ranking. It's Graham Barlow. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm enjoying my lockdown.
You're enjoying
back out. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone feels a bit under threat, don't they, with the lockdown? I think it's threatening our existence. So everyone's a bit on edge, but at the same time, there's all this time to do stuff, and it's been a real boost for me for my martial arts practice. Lots of time to get in the garden and just do more of it. And kind of, I've even got my sons into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the back garden, which has been sort of a lifelong ambition of mine, and they've never been into it until there was nothing else to do. So in that respect, it's been a great thing, really.
Yeah, my eldest daughter had started coming to the no-gi jiu-jitsu classes, and when we started trying to do a little bit of rolling in the garden, but like she's kind of still too little. She's easily bored. But my youngest daughter, I've started weightlifting with her actually, which is really great for her because she's really gangly and uncoordinated, but she really loves it now. She's getting really strong. She's getting muscles. But let's talk about first of all, people who don't know you as an individual or as a teacher or as a student might well know you as the author of I'm sharing the screen, the blog, the website, the Tai Chi Notebook, which you have. The subtitle is Reflections on Tai Chi, Xing-Yi, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Martial Arts Studies. Now, this is a really well known and widely read blog, isn't it?
I like to think so. Yes, obviously. Yeah, I mean, it gets quoted a lot in other people's blogs, and I think Ben Judkins has shared a few of my posts on his Chinese martial studies blog as well. So it's just a place where I have ideas and write about them, and it's a bit like throwing mud at a wall. Some of them are good, some of them not so much, but occasionally I hit a good one and it seems to resonate with a lot of people. Then it will kind of, I wouldn't say go viral because it's still such a niche subject, martial arts, especially the Chinese ones that I'm interested in. Occasionally I write something that, gets a few hits and it kind of all gets exciting for a while and then it just dies off again. Yeah.
And you also write essays for different outlets, like you've written stuff for Ben Judkins's Kung Fu Tea blog, haven't you, recently, about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the lockdown and
on Zoom training, Zoom training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and how it changes the art and how the art has changed because of the lockdown, that kind of stuff. That's actually getting published tomorrow, I think.
Okay.
Then I wrote a stuff for Jet Li's website once. Jet Li used to have a website where he taught Tai Chi online, and employed various freelance writers to write stuff about Kung Fu, and I used to write stuff on there. It went on for about 2 years and it just vanished. So I think Jet stopped paying for it or something.
It's called expired. Yeah. Your payment has been declined. So you also, I mean, when I got a grant a few years ago to set up the Martial Arts Studies Research Network, and a large part of the aim of the network was to connect up different forms of practitioners and different forms of researchers who had different kinds of interest in martial arts. So it wasn't about building something in an ivory tower. It was about connecting up all the different ways people were talking about martial arts and bringing them together, largely within Cardiff University. And you came to one or two of the conferences, and you've you read
Yeah.
some of the stuff. I mean, what, as a kind of outsider, as someone who reads books and is intellectual but is not an academic,
Yeah.
how did you find that environment?
Well, I mean, yeah, I went to one of the martial arts studies conferences in Cardiff, and it was great actually. I really loved it. I think it was meeting the people as well. Made some really good friends actually, just from the people I met there, which was nice. I was sitting in the audience watching, I think it was watching Ben again, and the guy next to me, we just started saying things to each other about, oh, this is good, or you know. And then he turned and he went, so what? Who are you? And I said, well, I'm Graham. He goes, you're Graham? You're the Graham? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you're the Graham from Tai Chi Notebook, and you write on the internet a rum-soaked fist. I was like, yes, that's me. It's oh hi! I've like been reading your stuff for years, and you know that was great. And
Yeah.
that was Daniel, who's been on your podcast already.
Oh yeah.
Daniel Moroz.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a great. I mean, he then went on to do a talk at that conference, and before the talk, we actually had because we both did Choi Li Fut, so we actually had a little scrap right before his talk, and comparing techniques and stuff. That was really interesting, and I was quite impressed the way we had a little scuffle about, and then he just got on stage and started talking, and that was really quite impressive because, you know, I always find especially after jiu-jitsu class, I have to sit down for an hour and just let it all sink in, because I don't know, my brain goes into a different mode and I can't engage in intellectual discussions and stuff. I mean, you talked about that, I think, with someone else in your podcast.
Well, for me, I mean, in my history of practice, there have been things that send me to sleep and things that keep me awake, and things that help with sleep include Tai Chi. When I was younger, it was like taekwondo, kickboxing. But I used to do eskrima as well a lot, and we trained quite late at night. And by the time I got home, I was fit for nothing. I would just go straight to bed, almost like come in the house and climb into bed. And other people said it made them really wired. And I get the same with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. I'm stunned. I'm utterly useless after training. But Choi Li Fut, when I started doing Choi Li Fut, when it was added onto the syllabus, when I started training with you, that would keep me awake and wake me up at night. It was the most exciting thing. And I think it was because it was so unusual. It was, so everything I'd done before was, well, you hit. But Choi Li Fut was spin and you whiz and you dragon tail. And this is, you know, that stuff really got under my skin, and it kept me awake. I was excited for hours and hours after it.
If I train jiu-jitsu in the evenings, I have the same problem where physically exhausted but mentally very active. Yeah. And it takes me a long time to get the mind and the body kind of back together again so I can go to sleep. Yeah. So I just kind of accept that training in the evening, I'm going to be up till about, 12:30, just dicking about on the internet and looking at techniques and working out what I got caught with. And then this is something I talked about in my essay that's coming out tomorrow, which is something, if you get caught with something in jiu-jitsu, that can play on your mind for days. Like, he caught me in this arm bar and I don't know how he did it, and and then what I ended up always doing is researching online, going online, finding the technique I got caught with, finding a counter for it, working out exactly how it could have happened and how to stop it happening next time. And you can get a bit obsessed with that, and quite often you find if you just actually went back to class and tried it again, you come up with a solution in 2 minutes. It's just that at the time you were tired and you got with something by someone who was like maybe bigger than you or something. Yeah. We've drifted off the subject here of your conference, martial arts studies, which I just wanted to get back to because I feel like I watched that whole area from outside. I watched it grow from nothing to being a subject, which was interesting because, watching what you did, I think you were quite pivotal in the instigation of that whole thing. And I wanted to become a non-subject, and then it turned into this big subject that has conferences, journals, lots of people involved. And that was really interesting to watch. I always felt like a bit of an outsider though, because I think there's a certain academic level required to contribute to that kind of discussion. So I've just been edging ever and ever closer, basically.
I remember when before this began, We were training, lunchtime training session in a park in Bath. And I brought a book in, and the book was called like Meditation in the Martial Arts. And you went, oh, and you looked at it, you took it off and you looked at it, and you went, oh, it's written by an academic, ugh, and you handed it straight back to me.
Yeah, I probably had that view of academics at the time, but my view of academics has changed because having met them, they all actually practice martial arts as well. They're not. I think I just naively assumed they were just professors of sitting in dusty offices, but everyone I've met who's been involved in martial arts studies has been a practicing martial artist. And even if they're not like a hardcore martial artist, at least they know what they are, and they're 100 times better than, shall we say, the world's chief commentator on martial arts, which is Joe Rogan, who in his most recent episode of his podcast, it was so his lack of. They're discussing what you can and can't do on the lockdown, and one of the things you can do in California, which I presume is where he lives, is do Tai Chi. You know, it's listed as one of the things that the state allows you to do, and then they had this whole conversation about what's a soft martial art, and like is Tai Chi a martial art as well, and they come up with definitions of martial art, and they're all stoned, and the more stoned they get, the worse the conversation gets. And I quite like some of the stuff he does. I mean, his commentating is the best, because there are some truly awful commentators in mixed martial arts, and he at least knows what the positions are and he knows what's going on. But his lack of knowledge of like the background, the history, what does soft mean in judo? The the soft, you know, and it means not weapons essentially, because it's the body rather than a steel blade. So comparatively, it's soft. It doesn't mean just, you know, going limp, which is kind of what he just took the word and then made up this definition of it, you know. Anyway, the lack of knowledge amongst the general public is quite outstanding, really. And then especially when someone's meant to be a commentator on martial arts. I mean, do your research, Joe. Come on.
You were messaging me over the weekend, going, Joe Rogan's got a new definition of Tai Chi, and I was like, leave me alone. I'm not. I'm in the garden. I'm having a nice, relaxing time. And you were like, no. So
you must see this.
I did look, and I watched it, and it was the most. And you wrote back, I just wrote like, oh my God, that's painful or something. And you said, yeah, he's got one job. All he needs to do is know about martial arts. And he doesn't know what Tai Chi is. You had one job. You had one job,
Joe.
So yeah, I guess, I mean, I think there's a lot of academic study that is really interested in internal martial arts, and I think it's because they seem more philosophical, and they seem so you might, things like say taekwondo, they're really closely aligned with sport. Other things are purely functional and purely physical and skill based and self-defense based or military based. But I think there is a lot of interest in Chinese martial arts. Second place probably Japanese, and I think that it's probably because of this connection with some sense of the deeper philosophical aspects to it. I mean, do you think that's fair enough? There's certainly a lot of academic interest in that.
It's fair enough, but it's a false connection, I believe. Right. It was the connecting of Tai Chi to ancient Taoist philosophy, which is the thing. You know, it's the Tao Te Ching, it's Lao Tzu. It's that type of thing that gets put onto Tai Chi. It was basically just added on by people like Sun Lu Tang in like the 1920s, maybe a bit earlier. But once Tai Chi got into the middle classes in China, it then became something that could be taught for money, and it became something that needed to have a bit more depth. And I think a lot of this stuff about connecting it to old Taoist things comes from that. I mean, at the same time, everything in like Chinese history is kind of connected, and the ideas behind Tai Chi are certainly Taoist. definitely, it's the idea of yin and yang, yielding and attacking kind of in harmony. Though, I mean, I think people like Sun Lutang saw that, realized the obvious connection, and then kind of added on this philosophical stuff to it, which I think came from elsewhere. And I think it came from potentially like Confucian scholars, really, who were like kind of the intellectual elite. It was those guys that kind of added the stuff onto Tai Chi.
So you kind of buy into the idea that, I mean, if we read work by someone like Douglas Weil, who has argued that Tai Chi had its ancestors, but it really becomes something specific in the 19th century, and that's when it becomes kind of gentrified and philosophical and connected with Taoism, because these were intellectuals who were also interested in the kind of ideological status of China in the face of Christianity and capitalism and the Western world, and they were like, it's the same. And so this kind of Chineseness has been explicitly sewn into it by the founders in the 19th century, and then all the way through. And this is the reason why, like, Tai Chi survived like Maoism and the Cultural Revolution. It's because it's very obviously not Western. It's very obviously not competitive. It's communal and all the rest of it. So it's a kind of quirk of its history.
Yeah, I mean that is essentially it, isn't it? That's yeah. I mean, I've got nothing to do but agree with that, really.
So you go along with that, because there are other people who would say no. It's essentially, in terms of its logic, the body mechanics of it, its whole strategy, that it's a sort of embodiment of Taoism. I mean, I kind of believe that at the same time as I believe this was invented. Like, I do.
Yeah. I mean, you only have to practice it to realize it's a physical embodiment of the things talked about in the Tao Te Ching, which is 2,000 odd years old.
Yeah.
It's you're doing exactly what that book was saying, just in a physical practice. But I don't think there's this connection to Taoism as a tradition, as a religious tradition, to the art of Tai Chi. I mean, I think it's bolted on later on, but equally, there's so many competing factors, like you're saying about the need for something to promote nationalism. It was the perfect vehicle for that, and then it survived all those things like the Cultural Revolution and stuff, which it was ripe for being destroyed because it was one of the rotten old traditions, wasn't it? But somehow it still managed to survive. Someone's cutting their hedge next to me.
It's all right. It seems okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, So I mean, it's both things at once, essentially. Yeah.
What was I going to ask? I'm worrying about whether we can hear your hedge being cut. But so you also you're working with your Xing-Yi instructor Damon Damon Smith, isn't it? And you by podcast, you are essentially constructing in oral form the entire history of Xing-Yi. Is that right? That, like, you're talking about everything that anyone's ever thought about Xing-Yi, all the contentious points. Would that be right? That'd be fair to say.
Well, we're trying to produce the history of Xing-Yi, basically. But Damon being Damon, maybe we should just say what Xing-Yi is first, because people might not know it. So they're commonly thought of as three internal martial arts: Tai Chi, Xing-Yi, Bagua, and Xing-Yi is undoubtedly the oldest. And all these problems we've got with Tai Chi, where you're trying to make it philosophical and fit it into an older tradition somehow, like Xing-Yi can just bypass all that because it is old. It goes back to the Song dynasty, which is like 1,000 years ago. I mean, I'm not saying that what people do now and call Xing-Yi was what they were doing back then, but the ideas of it and the oral tradition goes back that far to what this what they had at the time in the Song dynasty was this. Lots of the dynasties of China were always looking back at the previous dynasties to find out what had gone wrong. because dynasties rise and fall, and they always follow the same pattern where when they get too much into bureaucracy and micromanagement, everything gets too difficult and it collapses. A bit like the Roman Empire, where they kind of just get managed to death. Then the next dynasty comes along and tries to fix what went wrong. And one of the ways they tried to fix that was to look back at the golden ages of China. And a lot of those golden ages happened when the government and everything looked to nature rather than rules and regulations, which is a lot of what the Tao Te Ching's talking about as well. If you read it, a lot of it is about how to run a kingdom. So in the Song Dynasty, they had this movement called the Li movement, which was a chance to, through art and poetry and writing and everything, it kind of got, it's a bit like the Renaissance in Britain. It kind of got, well, not Britain, in Europe, it was expressed through various art forms and through government as well. And the Li movement was essentially trying to get back to following nature's way. And this was expressed in their martial arts as well, where they would look towards animals for strategies to fight with rather than man-made inventions. So they would use Yu Fei was the famous general, and he would have strategies for his soldiers to defeat the Jin. He was the most successful general they had, and he generally did win most things. He was eventually brought down by the corrupt rulers who were trying to do a deal with the Jin and didn't like the fact that he was beating them. So he got stabbed in the back at the end of the day, but he had strategies based around animals. So like a horse is a good one. Horse attacks the weak point. So horse will attack. If you think of the phrase "a horse burst out of the corral," so it will kick its way through the fence at a point that's defended but weaker than other parts. So it will find the weak point to, and then you can use that same sort of strategy as a military tactic, where you attack the opposing forces in a point where they are defended but weakly defended. So you concentrate all your efforts on that one point, kind of ignore the rest. That would be like a horse strategy. So a lot of the military tactics at the time were based around this idea of going back to nature. And then that idea didn't die with Yu Fei when he died. It kind of got passed on through his general and through the soldiers, because if you think how many soldiers would have been in his army, it was thousands. So these ideas filtered down and became or influenced what we have today as the martial art of Xing-Yi, which is based on spear fighting, which was the main weapon that soldiers would have carried. These days, we don't tend to do it with spears very much because they're cumbersome and you can't carry them around. I like to do it with sword a lot, actually. It's a good substitute for a spear because it's pointy, has a sharp bit, and you can actually carry it around, use it in your garden without freaking out your neighbours.
Yeah, I remember I was thinking about, I was going to ask you about natural movement, because I think you've always been interested in finding some kind of natural movement. But what that natural is changes, doesn't it? Because there's a lot of talk in Tai Chi about you relearn natural movement, you relearn a childlike movement, and you know the natural kind of, so you don't have like specific muscle tension here for your punches. It will be a natural boom. But there's different kinds of natural. And I remember when I was learning some Xing-Yi before I broke my ankle, and you were showing me the basic sort of stance, and you was like, you kind of really twisted up and not natural. And you were going, yeah, but if you've got a spear in both hands, like that is a natural position to be in. Yeah. So like natural depends on your material environment. And then I guess there's something natural about the wrestling kind of character of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, isn't there? But also not natural, because it's natural once you've learned it. Like, you know, in your article that you're writing for Ben Judkins, that you've written for Kung Fu Tea, you kind of dispute the idea that you could just flow naturally through something. Like in Jiu-Jitsu, there's this type of movement you learn and it becomes natural, but you absolutely have to have the knowledge of where to put your foot to escape from a certain pin or something like this. So there's natural changes, doesn't it? I mean, natural is a bit of a red herring.
Yeah, it's very hard to work out what natural movement means, isn't it? I mean, it's so meaningless, it means nothing almost. I think in terms of Xing-Yi, the word natural is used in the sense that you're observing methods in nature and trying to present them in human terms. So that's the kind of natural that I'm looking for in Xing-Yi. Is like this morning I was doing some goshawk, right? So goshawk is a bird that hunts in the forest canopy, and it's beneath it, and it kind of hits branches as it goes for its prey. It hits them and just skims off because it's going through very small little holes. So a lot of the movements in goshawk, for example, are punch, and then like there's another punch, and it's all grazing and slipping through. So that type of stuff, it's observing what the actual animal does in nature, because its hunting tactics have to be real, because if they aren't real, then it dies. So what it's doing has to work. It's not like human beings where we can have delusional thoughts about all sorts of things and it has no real impact on our lives, unless we decide that we're invulnerable to being hit by a car and then walk into the street. If we just, I don't know, decide that maybe Britain could function fine without the rest of the European Union, I can just decide that, and then yeah, why not? I mean, I'm not going to get killed the next day. I'm probably, further down the line it might not work out well for me, but it's completely fine to be deluded about various things. Whereas if animals get deluded about something, then they generally just starve or they get eaten. Like if you're a zebra and you decide that you're invisible, you're not going to last very long, are you? So it's worth looking at animal strategies and how they hunt and how they evade predators. But obviously you don't want to be the animal because you're a human being, but you can take certain parts of their strategy and use it in a human way. So for example, that works really well. If someone's punching in and as they're punching in, I just sort of graze over the top of their arm, which slows their attack. Suddenly they're paused for a second, boom, the second strike comes in. So you can take that as natural movement, if you like, from a Xing-Yi perspective. But like you say, a lot of the positions when you first start out don't feel natural, do they? There's quite a lot of torque in the body, and there's quite a lot of twisting. But over time, you adapt to it, and it's just like jiu-jitsu. None of those positions feel natural, really. But if you just start to move around the floor a lot, suddenly you don't even think about it anymore. You just do it, and it's a lot like what like tiger cubs roll around and play with each other, don't they, to learn how to fight. I think a lot of it is based on that kind of playfulness aspect, which is a huge part of what today we call mindfulness. I think I noticed that Tamara was talking a lot about playfulness in her talk that you made me watch this morning at 6 a.m. Thanks for that. But I mean, again, that links back to the other big part of our podcast is to look at esoteric things, esotericism in the Western world, and a lot of that is essentially taking a shamanic view of the world and trying to put it back into a Western civilization point of view. And there's always these 7 steps you go through in these esoteric societies, and the first one is always this sort of initial one is kind of a bit like mindfulness. It's Damon calls it chillicity. That's his made up name for it. And you can find out how to do all this stuff on his podcast, which is Woven Energy. He'll take you through the steps. It's a practical podcast. You can listen to it, do the exercises, and you can understand what he's talking about. And the first stage, I think, is completely applicable to Tai Chi, Xing-Yi, any martial art, and it's essentially like a 3-step way to just get back to a natural state, which again ties into natural movement. And it's like a natural state of mind. There's 3 parts to it. There's he uses Mongolian words because there are no comparable words in the English language. You've got Bat, Tortial Teen, and Gurkha, and Tortial Teen is playfulness. It's the experimentation. It's having the childlike quality, and I think that's important for martial arts and natural movement as well.
So
there you go. That's a bit of a monster answer, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I was thinking about that because you've sent me stuff in the past, and you talk about shame and this and shame and that, and we mentioned it earlier, and you said it's a bit off-putting, and I'm like, well, thinking, yeah, I've never once looked at any of that stuff. If you use the word shaman at me, it's like, bye, see you later.
Yeah, that's a real thing. That if you say the word shamanic practice to someone, they pretend you haven't said it.
Yeah, is that the time?
Yeah. And you can see, you understand why, because it's generally associated with people who are a bit out there. And it's a non-subject. Like you won't find, well, you maybe find a little bit in martial arts studies, because some of the Chinese stuff has shamanic,
and there's a lot
links to it
in lots. If once you look at the anthropology of it, if you look at the way
anthropology.
Yeah,
that's where it gets pigeonholed into anthropology. That's the thing.
And also religious studies.
It should be.
Religious studies and anthropology tend to intertwine quite a lot. But it's always somewhere else, isn't it? It's always in Malaysia, or it's always in China. But like you're in North Somerset or wherever you are. Which I guess has its own stigma attached to it. Of course, he's in the West Country and interested in shamanism.
Well, Damon, I mean, I'm not a teacher of shamanism at all. I just find it really interesting and practical. Is the key for me. It's practical wisdom. It's stuff you can actually use. Stuff you can use in a fight. It's stuff you can use in business. It's stuff you can use when you're just dealing with relationships with other people. That's what's interesting to me. I mean, Damon is a business consultant. That's his job. And he effectively tells me that he's just being paid to teach shamanism. So, I mean, I do hate this businessification of everything. Like Sun Tzu's Art of War is now for business. I'm not a fan of that, but I'm just saying that Damon is like a shamanic teacher. He's also a consultant at Cambridge University.
Okay, I want to ask a bit about the status of figures, because you're always interested in history, and I've often wondered about the status of that interest. Like, does it matter for everything? Like, so, and Ben Judkins has talked about this in some of his blog essays as well, about like, if you do Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Xing-Yi, you care about your history, and there's this whole lineage thing, like it matters, and it all goes back to some immortal on a mountaintop, as if. But like, if you do kickboxing, or if you do even jiu-jitsu, like I know that I'm undoubtedly you know about the sanctioned history of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but does it matter in the same way? Like, why does it matter, and does it always matter? And if you go down a kickboxing club, it doesn't matter, right? And if you do judo, it also doesn't matter, because it's a sporting institution that's affiliated with blah blah blah. But like, it seems to matter intensely in Chinese martial arts, certainly in the British practice of them.
Well, I think it's because of style, isn't it? Like, if you say you do judo, then you know what to expect. If someone says I'm a judo person, they will do the same thing as someone who says I'm a judo person in Newcastle, in Glasgow, in London. They're doing the same thing. Whereas if you say you're a Tai Chi person, you could be doing something wildly different. And the reason for that is lineage, isn't it? So I was taught by this person, so they're like a more martial branch, or I was taught by this person. They mixed it with something else. And then, I was taught by this person, and well, their kind of speciality is healing or something. So it in a way, I guess the lineage there is a way of saying, rather than saying I do Tai Chi, I do this type of Tai Chi. You can expect this from me. I think in kickboxing, it all looks the same, doesn't it? No one does. Oh, okay, so there's difference. Actually, there's like the Dutch style, isn't there? And then there are differences. Boxing gyms have specialities too, don't they? Whereas, you get things from different cities. You get styles in boxing. But maybe it's not to the same extent that you get it in Chinese martial arts. And you can have a style of Choi Fut, 2 styles of Choi Fut, as I found out when I was talking to Daniel. They're wildly different. I mean, they've got the same techniques in them, but everything about them is different. The approach to fighting. I remember when the first thing I said to Daniel was, "Oh, we do this like sound choy," and then he goes, "Well, what about the sounds?" I'm like, "What sounds?" He goes, "That's the first thing you learn, the sounds, the 5 sounds." And we don't do any sounds. You don't do any sounds, but that's the basics. And then, like, what we were doing is it was the same art, but it was very different. And a lot of the reason for that would be lineage. Like he came from a Hung Sing style of Choi, and I came from a boxing style. The boxing guy basically was a bit of a reformer. He got rid of a lot of the content. There's a huge amount of content in Hung Sing, and not all of it. You don't need all of it to fight with. I just want to fight, so I'll just do this little bit of it here. And undoubtedly, along the way, a lot of the cultural things were lost, which in Daniel's style, a lot of those things were preserved. So, is that an answer?
But well, it is. But I'm also driving at. I'm driving at the question of status based on, like, I am the student of such and such, which means I'm more knowledgeable and better and superior to you. It's that
there's definitely a lot of that in China's martial arts. Everyone is
it's almost like royalty. It's like, because I am of this lineage, therefore my dad was bigger than your dad or something.
Anytime you go to a new Chinese martial arts teacher, they'll tell you to forget everything you've done before. It's all wrong. Everything. And that's true of any new teacher you go to.
Right.
There's definitely a sense of, because it was so secretive at one point, there's definitely a sense of, well, we do it differently. We're more orthodox. I hate that word orthodox, especially when applied to martial arts. I mean, there's been lots of discussions about how none of it is pure. It's all a mix of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you don't do it exactly the same way they do it, you're wrong. There's so much of that involved. It's just one of the reasons that, I mean, I've been involved in discussions about Chinese martial arts for years, and it's like a love-hate relationship. I'm interested in it, so I enjoy the discussion, but equally I hate the attitudes you just come up against, the same attitudes over again, especially if you're not Chinese. I mean, instantly you're kind of, you're just one of those guys that you're a tourist. You get that kind of thing as well. I mean, I am an amateur. I'm an enthusiast. I'm not doing this as a job. It's not a full-time occupation. It's just a fun hobby, but I just really enjoy it.
But there's a lot of with the lockdown. I mean, with the global pandemic and the different types of lockdown in different countries, people have noted that there's a huge number of martial arts institutions are going more online, and teachers are going more online, and kind of they're throwing out publicly, and it's often for free, stuff that until 2 months ago was secret. Like, it was the secret that you learn as you go through this. But now people, it's almost like in a desperate bid to survive in some way, or to have some kind of catharsis of some kind, they're just going, I can have all of this and have all of it. Some institutions are doing it to survive. Like, I think that the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu response is like, please don't cancel your membership subscription. We're going to give you access to whatever, Gracie University or whatever it is we're going to give you access to. But some of the stuff is like, well, we feel like this is the way that we can help now. I can do a daily YouTube, Facebook Live or YouTube Live or Zoom, and I'll just give you everything I know because I want to help. I mean, do you think what's the landscape going to look like on the other, if there is another side of this? If there's a clear other side of this, what's it going to look like, do you think?
Well, I don't know if there is another side of this, to be honest. I think it's better for Chinese arts because they have forms, lots of solo things. I could imagine the situation where you're graded online through Zoom quite easily. If you're being graded on your knowledge of forms and presentation, then it's quite easy to be graded through Zoom. So that stuff, I think, still has a future. I'm really worried about jiu-jitsu. Until there's a vaccine, it just seems like it's the worst possible thing that could have happened to it. Because jiu-jitsu is basically just smothering yourself in the sweat and body of like 20 different people in a class, isn't it? I mean, there's no way you can do it safely unless you all. I mean, there's talk about having classes where you all come in and just practice on your dummy, but together in the same room. So it's like a Zoom class, but in real life. So I mean, and for me, I just don't think I'd be interested personally. I'm sure some people would, but for me, that doesn't cut it. I mean, there's something about that rush of rolling with someone else.
Yeah.
As you know, from doing what little jiu-jitsu we did before the lockdown happened.
Yeah.
There's nothing that compares to that. It's like the most fun thing ever. Well, maybe the most fun thing ever, but in terms of martial arts, it's the most fun thing you can do.
It pretty much is.
And a Zoom experience will never capture that.
No.
So I think for Chinese arts, it could be a boom time, maybe. I mean, I've got a friend who runs a Systema Academy, and he said because he switched to Zoom, all his classes on Zoom, his number of students overall in the academy has gone up since the lockdown, because he's now reaching a worldwide audience, which he had no sort of motivation to do before because he didn't need to, but now he's doing really well. So, I mean, good luck, because a lot of that Systema stuff you can do on your own, because a lot of it is push-ups, sit-ups, squats, breathing, walking around, falling on the floor, getting up again. It's all the stuff that's easily done in your own house.
And this is the kind of latest essay that you've written for Ben Judkins's blog, and that should be published soon. And you're also writing different chapters and different sections for different kinds of books. And it seems that the link, because you've shown some stuff to me and you've talked to me about stuff, is because of your straddling these different worlds of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Chinese martial arts, it seems like the image and the link that you are pursuing in your writing on these styles is the snake. It's like this is the thing that's enabling you to conceptualize these different...
Let me just bring up this handy book that I've... What a coincidence. Buy this book. No, don't buy this. No, buy this book. So, I mean, going back to Xing-Yi, so there's 12 animals in Xing-Yi. One of the animals is a snake, and the snake, if you watch anacondas, there's videos on YouTube of anacondas catching prey. They just, they wrap themselves around it and they constrict it and then slowly swallow it, which is exactly what we do in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I mean, because I'm straddling those two worlds, I can see that connection between the two, which, I mean, there's very few of us that have got to black belt in Jiu-Jitsu and are also quite big into Xing-Yi as well. And Tim Cartmell is more experienced than me by a long way, but he's like the only other person that really comes to mind. He does both. But my focus in Xing-Yi is very much more on the animals. That's what I'm interested in. So I've come up with this theory that essentially, I mean, I talked to Damon about it, who's my Xing-Yi teacher, and he said, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is snake. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. So there's this connection between the grappling methods found in snake and the grappling methods found in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And if you watch, like a good Jiu-Jitsu guy in the UFC is Damian Maia, who finishes most of his fights with the rear naked choke behind. And it's a human personification of a constrictor choking its prey. It's exactly the same thing. And that's what I mean by mirroring nature in human ways, which goes back to what I was saying before. But yeah, this book is by Glenn Board, who's a friend of mine. He asked me to be in it. So, I mean, there's lots of pictures of me getting beaten up and me beating Glenn up in it. It's one of those, it's mainly a kind of a technique heavy book. So there's lots of pictures of techniques. And then at the end, I've written a chapter it's basically a chapter of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu techniques, but the idea is I'm asking people to look at them again. So there's me like in a gi doing Jiu-Jitsu in this book. I'm asking people to look at them from the perspective of snake after having read the book and got an idea of what snake means in Xing-Yi terms. Just have a look at these techniques and see if to you it looks like a snake or not, I guess, is the idea. It's not to say that we should all be putting on gis to do Xing-Yi. That's not the idea. The idea is if you can take that perspective on animals and then apply it to other arts, you can gain a lot of insight, which is quite useful. I mean, I was watching UFC 249 on a Saturday, and probably because I've been doing too much Xing-Yi recently with all this lockdown stuff, but I was watching the fights, and I was just thinking of it in terms of animals, which was great, because I was watching Dominic Cruz fight Henry Cejudo. It was monkey versus tiger. And once I got in my head, okay, he's monkey, he's tiger, and I looked at it through that lens, I could see all sorts of possibilities in the movements they were doing that I just wouldn't have been able to get otherwise. So it's not like it's a shift in perspective that allows you to perceive perhaps something that you would never have been able to get to without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not suggesting Joe Rogan starts commenting fights in terms of, oh, he's using the monkey claw. It's not that type of thing.
It'd be good though. I mean, it's really interesting to me because, and I don't expect you to think about it in these terms at all, but like in a lot of, don't run away, don't hang up. In post-structuralist theory and post-colonialist theory, a figure called Gayatri Spivak, she says, cheerio, don't fall asleep.
As if I said shamanism, wasn't it?
No, yeah. So in post-structuralism, in deconstruction, they would really struggle with words like the idea of a concept, and the idea of a metaphor. And people like Gayatri Spivak would always write about concept metaphors, because like a concept is irreducibly metaphorical. And so, people might look at what you've just said and gone, oh, it's projection. It's just a metaphor that he's extending to everything, or he's translating things into different terms. But you really hit at there's a problem here of conceptuality. Like, why would it not be a snake? Like, what does it mean to say that it isn't snake if you see it as snake? Because I think we all do that. That's the way we conceptualize the world. I've asked a few people, like I asked Tamara Russell yesterday about like, how do you translate concepts like from different worldviews into each other? And like, so how do you translate Xing-Yi into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And do you start seeing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in terms of Xing-Yi animals? And that's really all we can ever do, isn't it? That's all we can ever do. You can go, you've got monkey and you've got bear and you've got all these different animals, and you can look at fighters and go, well, you're fighting like that's bear. Like when I started Kung Fu with you, you went, and I'd done years of kickboxing and Taekwondo, you went, you're horse. And I was like, oh, great. So I'm just going to keep kicking and punching, am I? Not making something that's the opposite of horse. But there's one last thing I want to ask you about, definitely. You work in publishing, and like that, that's your long-term career, and the place you work for publishes all sorts of stuff at all different levels. Yeah. And you're still publishing in these like real old-fashioned looking manuals, like
paper.
It's like paper, it's glossy, there's pictures.
I think they're called magazines.
Is that not just a bit like nostalgic, or is it still a real thing? Because I mean, everything's online now. I mean, we're doing video here. There's YouTube, but we're going to be on YouTube. But still, we want to be in books, don't we? I mean, what is that? Just an affection? Is it nostalgia, or is there something?
Well, I think for an author, there's being published and holding the thing you've written in your hands is different to seeing it on a screen completely. Especially book authors. If they've written a book, they want to hold their book. I've written. I've had my name and photo in magazines for like over 15 years, probably. And the first time it happens, it's a real thrill. You kind of, oh, it's me! Look, you show a copy to your mum, don't you? And then after a few years, it just becomes like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. It really kind of this idea, this pseudo fame, kind of wears off very quickly. But there's definitely a thrill to the published work that I don't think you'll ever recapture online. I mean, it's no secret that magazines are in a kind of a state of managed decline. Who knows whether this lockdown thing will have an effect on that, though? I mean, it could be that people want to start reading magazines again rather than spending all their time on a computer. I mean,
because we are so much more, aren't we? I mean, my desire over the last few weeks has been to read physical copies of physical books, because it's all day staring at this.
Yeah, the Zoom
And it's
calls.
just like my eyes, I need to just be away from this. So I flip between my love of the physical feeling of a book and being frustrated and trying to zoom and make the font bigger, or
doing that on the page. It's not. Why is it not getting bigger?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing that with laptops too, where you start to kind of like,
Yeah.
I can't do it. It's not an iPad. Yeah, but I mean, Zoom calls are great, but like you say, if you have 2 back to back, I'm just dead.
Yeah.
Like it's like I've just done a sparring session in jiu-jitsu. My intellectual ability has declined by 20%.
Yeah, I mean, I've found I'm marking a lot of essays at the moment, undergraduate essays, and you've seen on Facebook, I've been trying different strategies because it's so exhausting. But what has been working really well for me is you do one essay, and then I go in the garden and I do the Tai Chi short form, and I come back, and it's keeping this rhythm. I mean, I'm absolutely exhausted by the end of the day, but I really need that flip between the virtual and.
So how many form run-throughs is that a day then?
Well, I've only been marking until lunchtime. I've only been marking until lunchtime, so I've been doing approximately 10 rounds of the form. Yesterday I got a bit creative and I was doing some yoga stuff as well. But yeah, my Tai Chi is improving with my marking this week.
Yeah, that's the thing about Tai Chi. That I was, for some reason, I was thinking about this morning. Like if you don't do the form 3 times a day, you're not even in the game with Tai Chi. It's incredible. I find with Xing-Yi, I can, because there's 12 animals. I can't do all 12 all day. That's not every day. It's just too much because it's exhausting as well. I can sometimes go like a couple of months without doing one of the animals and then just pick it up. And I kind of get, my interest goes between different ones. Like I hadn't done Goshawk for, I don't know, maybe a year until I just suddenly started doing it again today. But you contrast that with Tai Chi. If you don't do the form 3 times, you haven't got any skin in the game. You can't improve. It's totally weird. I don't get it. I don't know why that is, but it's real and you can feel it.
Yeah. I think on that note, because this is definitely just degenerating into a conversation, isn't it? I'm going to say, Professor Sifu Sensei, Graham Barlow, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.